Hey, chat, give us specifically London City British accent.
Absolutely. I'll refine that for you. Here we go. Switching to a more London-style British accent. Hopefully this sounds a bit more spot on and proper for you. Just let me know if this is what you're looking for, and I'll keep it going.
That's horrible. Well, good thing we don't go to you for accents.
Exactly. Yeah. Yo, are we shooting right now, Andy?
We are, yes.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Letter. Here we are today. It's so good to see y'all, hear from y'all. We're ramping up, and kind of as we're going into the holidays. You know, we're settling down into the holidays. Luckily, we're we don't, turn off for the season. It's still weekly. Mm-hmm. But we are going to be starting to settle to get ready for, a ramp up in January with some working on some great interviews, some great things ahead with Beyond the Letter that we're working on. I'll tell you in a few moments some things that maybe we're working on that you can look out to and provide feedback if you'd be interested in something like that, because we're kind of in the middle of things. But I got Jermaine on with me today.
Yo.
Through Jermaine on to be in the house
Yes.
with me. And we've been working on something. It's not fully set just in terms of the show. But one of the things you'll find that on Beyond the Letter, we're having conversations. Sometimes it deals with data or facts. And we've kind of always mentioned either we'll ask AI, almost like Google, question, or we actually want to fact check live. That's something that, sometimes we'll say 20% of people this, 40% of people this, which, for the most part, it tends to be true, but we want to always make sure that it's factual. So something Jermaine's working on that's just beta today, like we, obviously we'll find out what we talk about, but that's beta is that we have AI tied into the podcast right now, right, Jermaine?
Mm-hmm.
So explain what you set up, put together that we're going to hopefully be able to do in the future.
Yeah, like you just talked about, like we find ourselves not knowing what rabbit hole we'll go down. And that leads us to just like really, Pastor Adam's really known for just knowing the most random facts ever. But he's also expressed like, I'd love to be fact checked because I hate when the comments or even myself, I go, no, I misquoted that fact or that report or that citation or whatever. So I was just like, hey, what if we tap in ChatGPT's audio and the input for the mic, and so anytime it's just live listening to the entire show, and if at any point something's at the tip of your tongue or even anything, like for example the other day I was struggling, like what's that Japanese technique to repair what is that thing, chat? It's a Japanese technique to repair cups and porcelain. What is that called, that technique?
Now, do you have to say, hey, chat?
Hey, chat, what's that Japanese technique to repair porcelain or whatever? What's that thing called? Starts with a K.
Absolutely. That's called kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold or lacquer, and it highlights the cracks as part of the beauty. So there you go.
Yeah, so just,
there you go. Yep.
And we kind of gave him some strict rules early, like, hey, we're only going to clearly address
we don't want you
I
jumping
didn't even
in.
follow it.
Yeah. And our mics are tied into it, and
Yeah.
so it's like, hey, don't just be butting in the whole time. It's only when you're referred to be asked, right?
Yeah.
Like you take just showing some examples. You take recent episode. Just my most recent. Which, man, thank you everyone so much for sharing. The amount of people that I heard this last episode. I don't even know if you heard it yet, Jermaine, but I talked about basically advice I'd give to any Gen Z in the workplace. And I named 4 foundations that every young person should have going into the workplace. And so it's actually a curriculum that I'm working on. I'm writing it right now. And the amount of just not even to, exasperate, but man, just hearing even people who own businesses and stuff like, man, I'm gonna make this like mandatory. We're gonna use this and all, to take our staff through and all that. And so, even hearing from other business people like, can you get this thing written soon? So, because I feel like it was good. It's solid advice. But even in that conversation, there were things that I was saying that I know to be true, but to have, more of that, I think it'll impact our listeners to have that kind of live data, and even through AI, being able to ask it to, hey, what is the source that you're coming from? So anyone who wants to do a deeper research, right? So I could say something like, hey, chat, in corporate work field right now with Gen Z, there's something known as reparenting because Gen Z are having to learn life skills in the workplace. Can you give us a little bit of data and facts pertaining towards that potential statistic in the American workplace?
Absolutely. So a lot of data suggests that Gen Z is indeed experiencing a kind of reparenting in the workplace. What that means is that many employers are finding they need to teach some life skills that previous generations might have learned at home. Things like communication norms, time management, or even basic professional etiquette. As for the data, recent surveys, like those from organizations such as the Society for Human Resource Management, highlight that a significant portion of managers report spending more time on these life skill trainings with Gen Z employees. And if you want to dive deeper, you can check out reports from sources like SHRM or even Deloitte, which have done studies on Gen Z workplace trends. So that's a little overview for you.
Yeah, see, so that's
pretty
solid,
phenomenal,
right?
yeah,
It's solid, because then it helps be much more factual, much more what people may not know with like podcasts. A lot of times, what they would call is post editing on the back end of editing. If like say someone in a podcast says something that isn't like the data isn't factual, they tend to just edit it out. So even when you're listening to like, say, the major podcasts, and it just seems like they always know what they're talking about, well, that's because they have fact checkers on the back end that when they say something, they just edit that section out of the whole episode so that it's not even dealt with at all, or, a big podcast is with an actor called Dax Shepard. He's got one of the largest podcasts called Armchair Expert. They literally at the end of every one of their episodes have, his staff member, Monica, it's her job to fact check the entire episode. And then before they film the next episode, they do an ending episode of fact checks and just re-clarify, or she says, oh, this wasn't true when you said this, Jax, or Dax, or whatever. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, or whatever.
Wow.
Or she just re-clarifies and whatever, right? So for us, we get to have like a live version of that, where we don't need to, we don't edit rarely ever at all. So even we're human, even when we make wrong data, like we tend to say, hey, I don't know for sure, maybe look it up. But in that same regard, like this will allow us to maintain movement, but also bring much more education and clarity about the topics that we're going to be discussing,
Yeah, that's good. And I also think about the two factors that you could even like kind of hack your chat GPT socially and be like, hey, don't just affirm me. And so I kind of told it earlier, don't just affirm us. Please feel free to clarify, correct, and let us know where we were close or whatever, but bring clarity. So that's one. And two, because this is a beta test, we're realizing now, like, I'm thinking, oh, this is too slow. He's reacting too slow. But on Joe Rogan, Jamie takes 30 to 90 seconds sometimes to find something, and it just puts a halt on the show. And so this is actually a game changer for like the pace of the show. Because whenever you bring up a fact, or if you're ADHD, or you're just like, it's out there somewhere, we'll get around to it. We never do get around to it because we didn't want to spend the time going, but it's right there, and
Yeah.
So that's
sure.
a cool factor too that has high potential.
Yeah, and you look even examples like we could give an example right now, like we've done episodes on AI about Gen Z and emotional attachments they have currently to their AI. And so I wonder if you say something like, hey chat, could you give us some data right now on American Gen Zers on what type of attachment they have to their AI in terms of friendship and relationship? Could you give me a statistic for that?
Absolutely. So recent studies have shown that a significant portion of Gen Z does indeed form emotional attachments to AI. For example, surveys indicate that around 30 to 35% of Gen Z respondents say they feel some level of personal or emotional connection to AI-driven companions or assistants. And this data comes from various tech and social research reports, including places like the Pew Research Center and other groups that study digital behavior. So that's a quick stat for you.
Yeah, so there you go. So it gives more, clarity into stuff that we're talking about. And obviously we're not here to interview, AI or anything like that. And so it's not like something that will, and I'm sure even in post-production, even that 10 seconds pause, it's just going to be easy for us to cut out because, we're not going to be, we'll use it, whatever 3 or 4 times an episode each time. But
For sure.
it's still good enough that it can maintain the standard of intellectual, conversation, and even understanding faith more, culture more, because obviously this is a Christian podcast. So as we understand our faith deeper and also understand culture deeper and how our faith intertwines with life and culture and all those things like that, this type of resource is gonna be able to help us to kind of expand, but also get the live data, or else you'd just be sitting here Googling the whole time, which takes too much time, and then you're scrolling through and like, okay, where is that true? No, I don't find it. Now.
Yeah, it's the speed and accuracy that's insane as a tool alone for fact checking and the resource that I think we're going to use it as. So it's kind of a no brainer. I ran it by you 3 months ago, and I was just like, what? I don't know. We haven't seen this yet, and I'm perplexed because we all interface it in our everyday now.
For sure.
Like I literally don't make a decision without insight from AI personally. Like any decision probably now, anything semi-significant.
Yeah.
I don't make a decision independently. So I just think that's kind of where society's headed, anyways. Where we do it already. It's like not new to AI. We've Googled stuff before, but I think the speed and accuracy now, and for AI and ChatGPT, but there's other great AIs out there that are just so good at knowing what you're really asking, because sometimes people don't even have the language to ask, their questions.
For sure.
It's really trippy how good and accurate it is at knowing what you're really trying to get out of it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, and being able to tie in like, hey, what is the actual resource that you're coming from, and then as the user, you can decide whether that's legitimate, or not, based off of what it is it's suggesting. But, so it's exciting. That's some stuff we're working on that we wanted to share live, that we're announcing, not announcing, but, we're going to be doing, from time to time. We hopefully we'll be able to figure out how it's tied into every single episode. Because right now I think we're using Jermaine's device. So yeah. We'll get like a little iPad or something.
Get
like
an
that.
input and an output, and it'll just
put a little stand right there and get it turned on.
And it could be more seamless too. We just have it off to the side, and it'll just be
integrated in. It doesn't have to be right there. Yeah, and in terms of what I'm saying, we're going to the holidays. We're in November doing this episode, and so we're going to be ramping up just from going. We're going to have some episodes November, December, but going to January, going to work on great interviews. What my goal is going into next year for this podcast is that we continue to do what we do, where we, as a group, talk about life and culture and how our faith intertwines with those things, but also then bringing on some people that are either, writing great books. We're in talks right now with some individuals from like Prime and other production companies, because there's a lot of faith-based like movies and music coming out and TV that's coming out. And so literally had a meeting last week talking to some individuals about trying to get some of these actors who are Christians, who are playing, like David and other characters on kind of these national platform shows, that we can just, understand them a bit more as they're producing this content for families, whether it be the story of David, which, House of David season 2 is out right now and has done phenomenal for Amazon Prime. And then, we got Chosen, that is, I believe it's this next Easter, that is focusing on the resurrection or something like that. I'm trying to remember where it's at right now in the Chosen series. But, you got Chosen, that, Easter is going to be a big thing. What's that, Alize?
It's the crucifixion.
It's the crucifixion, yeah. Hey, chat, is the Chosen series next Easter aspect about the crucifixion?
Absolutely. Yes. The upcoming season of The Chosen is indeed focusing on the crucifixion. So that's the storyline they're diving into next, and it should be released around the Easter timeframe.
There we go. So with that coming out, next year, one of the things we're working on is to see, whether some of these actors and people that are playing these characters are wanting to come on. We're talking about it. We're close to some individuals. We've had some meetings and all that kind of stuff like that. And so us being kind of outside near LA, we're gonna be able to get some of these production companies involved, even though a lot of them may be still based in Atlanta or whatever else. LA is still a hub. It's Amazon's hub for Prime, and so they're the ones investing the most money right now into family-friendly, faith-based content because it works for them for sponsorships. And
what are they, like $2 billion invested into faith-based content right now? Is that what their commitment is?
Oh my gosh, no, it's more
higher?
than I don't even. Well,
Thought it was $2
we'll
billion
have to
or
ask
something.
Chat because I know the number. I just don't know if it's public. So
Gotcha.
you know,
gotcha.
I don't honestly, I don't
No, I
even
think I
think
read it
Chat
in a
would be able to
headline.
find. Did you?
Yeah.
Hey, Chat, how much money right now is Amazon Prime investing into videos, movies, TV for faith-based content?
Absolutely. So right now, Amazon has been reported to be investing somewhere in the range of $1 billion or more into faith-based and family-friendly content. The exact number can vary, but it's definitely a significant investment because they see a lot of value in that space. So you're right on track with that.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right at about 2 billion. It's more is approved on a line item, but 2 is probably what's.
Yeah, I
what's
bet there's
been,
banger scripts coming out, banger concept. I mean, the Bible alone, if somebody
Yeah.
just sat with it, like, and
Yeah.
this is like,
I'd have to ask what I'm allowed to talk about because I don't know what I am and
Yeah.
am allowed to. But you're right. There's a
Yeah.
lot of great stuff on the horizon for this stuff.
What do you this is just maybe too edgy. If it's too edgy, just we'll change the subject. But I really do believe we still need like a rated R Bible project, like a Bible movie, Bible series, like a Game of Thrones level, but for the Bible.
Yeah, it's
I just think the world needs it. Like this needs to be done. And I don't know. Yeah, I know there's a general audience and stuff like that.
I got to remember what it was House of David
Rated?
rated for the TV show because it had
It's like PG-13,
I'll just
right?
Google that. What is House of David?
Hey, chat, what is the rating of House of David on Amazon Prime? Let's see what's faster.
It's giving me like the IMDb rating.
Hey, chat, what is
it's
oh.
TV 14. So that's high. That's PG 13. So I'm comfortable
with that
at PG 13 because like at that point, relatively speaking, at a certain age, my sons can still watch it, and they're like how much blood and gore do you need to show? How much how much like body parts do you really need to show? But I think 14 is appropriate. I think PG-13 is appropriate. I think R, you just deal with limitations really for the next generation, and it becomes an adult series, and the Bible isn't just like an adult book and all that kind of stuff like that. And so I get what you mean, though. I mean, Game of Thrones level, but at the same time, Game of Thrones is... it's like inappropriate on purpose. The guy the guy who wrote it likes to do inappropriate stuff.
But the thing is, though, like for you, because I've heard you elaborate on this, and this is, I think, where people struggle when it comes to like literal interpretation of the Bible, whereas like the Old Testament is like very narrative focused. Like, should you develop doctrine from reading the Old Testament? Probably not. You shouldn't develop a doctrinal belief and let it change the way you behave from reading the story about David. You know what I mean? Like from a basic standpoint. Whereas like New Testament teaches doctrine and theology. Yeah, like
for example, you're saying like Daniel ate fruits and vegetables. You shouldn't look at the life of Daniel and be like, oh, see, I that's the diet.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so it's like, because you said this about content in the world, which is like, I don't know if you said this or if it was somebody in our friend group, but I tended to agree with it. I don't know what you could share right now. But it's like, us as Christians, I understand the sensitivity on content out there. But oftentimes, it's content, TV shows are just trying to accurately portray the world or portray scenarios more than they are trying to program us on a belief, right? Whether it's like, I understand to a degree some in an open market context, like a Disney show getting canceled for having LGBTQ parents. I could understand that because that kind of feels agenda based and it's not a majority thing happening. So a lot of people are not in touch with that or don't interact with that. But then there's another myriad of like on the other side of the spectrum where Christians, I think maybe are just super hypersensitive about the content out there when it's like, hey, the world is just kind of crazy. So they're not pushing a violence agenda. They're probably just portraying the very typical violence that's happening. Do you get like where I'm tracking? Because it's like, it's just portraying what's already happening. It's not trying to push an agenda most of the time, I would say.
Right. It would be, well, that's where, that's where you would get in the case of like, if you are in Hollywood and involved in content writing or acting or whatever it may be, that does become the gray area of, acting what is perceived in real life, it's like one of the, and everyone has their different, moral belief on it. There's that one actor who's really well known, and he's Christian. He's often a villain in movies, and he kind of has a rule like he won't kiss women on screen because of his wife, and so but he'll shoot and kill, in the movies, and that's where his moral ethic boundary is, right? Someone could go deeper and say, well, murder is not moral either, and so if you're not going to kiss your wife, like morally, and he'd say, maybe he'd say, no, it's not, it is morally, but I just love my wife and I don't want that in between me and my marriage. Okay, fair, like
for sure.
I still think it's acting, and all that stuff like that, and so it's that discussion. I think what becomes really the question is, when you're a Christian and you're in charge of the content and you're in charge of what gets seen and not seen, is, a lot of content, a lot of stuff, music, movies, television, there is a moral decay to it. There is an ethical decay to it, because you're right. And it is something I've said before. Oftentimes those things mirror society. They mirror the real world, right? And, it's not really in a sense of promotion. It's hey, I'm showing you what this world is. It's like how you could do a mobster movie and someone say, hey, you're glorifying the mob. It's like, no, they're showing you this is what happens in the mob, or having a movie on gang violence and like, hey, you're promoting gang violence. Like, no, I'm showing what this looks like. And I think what the difference is, what does it lead to? What is kind of the moral of the story? And then that's where really you got to ask the question within the content and within the framework, like, what point is it trying to prove, right? In say Game of Thrones, which I haven't really watched, but I'm familiar with, is, it's this sexual appeal, and it's, just gratifies your eyes. It's I guess it's a guy who was an author that liked to write about, sex. But again, or you have like, in some ways, like the Netflix model, and so a lot of people do what they do is they'll put a lot of sex in the first episode, and then they'll wean it out in the following episodes to get traction.
That's what happened with Game of Thrones.
They have a moral and ethic. That's the difference, because within C.S. Lewis's work, within Tolkien's work, there is both of them for different reasons, right? There's you take Lewis with Narnia. You have the younger brother who, sold himself out for a Turkish delight. That's sin, right? He sold him out for sin. There's, there's the lion, whatever.
Aslan.
Aslan, and he gives his life up for the brother, and he lives through that. There's resurrection, right? You take Tolkien, right? You talk about the ring. It's the love of sin. It's the love of power, the love of control, and all that stuff. And people obsess over power and control, and this thing that's a ring is basically, and everyone has their, studies and interpretation, but as a Christian author, it's that idea. And you have the Eye of Sauron, which is, Satan's gaze, and all these other things like that. So not only did they build worlds, they led to ethical dilemmas. They led to moral thinking. They led towards consequential, things. And so I would not put Game of Thrones in the framework of a Narnia, or maybe he built a world. That's fine, but that's a aspect
for sure.
I don't even know. Do they have a language?
Yeah. So I would say this.
Is there a language in Game of Thrones?
I would say this. Maybe you're fully right that there's a lot way more sanctification and truth that has way more.
Because what I understand
it's
with
more
Game of
anchored.
Thrones, it's not. It's like much more politics than it is.
It is,
like,
but he does.
ethical dilemmas.
I mean, I'm not trying to push the show. That's not the agenda, but I'm just trying to give context. George R. R. Martin creates languages, creates worlds, creates lore and history within.
Yeah.
He creates family trees, and it's all really well done. And yeah, it is kind of like the politics and power, think Succession, right? It's like in that ether, but I think he really does. I mean, he's obviously super secular. I wouldn't say he's like nihilist. I'd just say that he's at least atheist. And so, yeah, because of that, his work is just putting the sin nature of mankind on display. He glorifies it. He kind of shows where it leads. There's truth in it, but it's not derived from truth like you would say.
That's life.
Yeah. So he's just a
like-
good commentator. I think but he still is a great storyteller. And he's a great world builder. I don't think he's
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 not
a
Lewis
to-
or Tolkien. The world building is not just what makes Tolkien and Lewis geniuses. There are people that world build all the time.
Well, what is it?
Martin's
What
not
is
the
it?
only. Well, it's the framework. It's the plot. It's the storytelling. It's the moral and it's the ethic behind all the things. It's not just the world building. It's the actual storytelling. And people like the character development of Game of Thrones or whatever. That's great. But he's not that. You can't be an aspect of person and like a person. It's like, or I wouldn't even say he's our modern day that.
I don't know any storytellers, world builders that are authors like that. I mean, the closest, obviously, J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter universe. She's up there. I would say that. That's fair. But I still think, obviously, I'm biased because I'm Christian. So in 2025, I don't think the Christian artists are always the most tapped in and channeling the greatness of God through their stuff.
J.K. Rowling's Christian too, though.
She's dope.
She's Anglican,
and she's been
and her
explicit.
storyline is the same.
Yeah, and she's been explicit and said, this is all inspired by Christ and the sacrifice He gave. So yeah, I don't, but there's also an objective artistic behavior. It typically mostly is accredited. The greats are Christian because I believe also that the greatest art comes from the Creator because that's who makes people creative. And it's His nature.
That goes to my whole theory of presuppositionalism. The greatest stuff mirrors God's story, and that's why it's the greatest.
Yeah.
The reason why Superman stands out as the greatest superhero ever, not just like someone could like Iron Man or whatever, but when you look at like his popularity, his longevity, how long he's been, popular, how many iterations of Superman movies there have been, it's like, it's Jesus. It's someone that comes from another planet, born on Earth, miraculous powers greater than humans, saves humans. There becomes little tweaks of deviances like kryptonite, but that's sin. And, in Jesus's case, sin had nothing to do with him, but it weakened Superman and all these other things and all that kind of stuff like that. And you have the villain, which is always a Satan, which is Hebrew. It's an adversary. And so, you look at Batman doesn't necessarily have Jesus' story within his framework. You look at Spider-Man, same thing. They all have a catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
Batman lost his parents, Spider-Man lost his uncle. There's always some type of beginning, but you specifically look at Superman's story and then you read the Gospels and you go, wow, whether they did it on purpose or not. But again, that's where God has written His story on our hearts, that no matter how long you can go in a cave, when you come out with the best hero story, it's going to mirror the gospel 10 times out of 10. That's just what's going to happen. You look at the greatest heroes, there is a gospel thread in it, and there's no argument that's like, oh, well, that's just coincidence. It's like, no, that's written.
For sure,
it's written within us. And so that's where you look at Harry Potter, you look at Lord of the Rings and Narnia. It's basically they're the same stories.
Yeah, for sure.
With new worlds, new type. Look at Game of Thrones. It doesn't even. It's not even in the same framework. It's like and it's not. It collectively as a culture, Game of Thrones is not regarded. It's regarded as a cult classic. It's not regarded as like today still some big national phenomenon in some type of way. But like you still have Lord of the Rings, you still have all that stuff. Like it's still and I would say it's not because of the author by itself. It's because they mirror God's story very well with their own versions of lifestyle, right? You got like Narnia is the fantasy kind of lens of like humanity fantasy, and then you got Narnia, which is like a totally different world. It's not Narnia, it's Lord of the Rings is like hobbits and all that stuff like that, and then you have Harry Potter, which is using magic as its framework. But the story is the same. There's death and resurrection in all three.
Sometimes or whatever, an artist or the creator is gonna go derivative, whether or not they, on record ever did the creator of Superman say I model after Jesus? No, but you could see the themes or whatever. The Bible has the actual completion of the story. So if you have the technical storytelling ability paired with an artist of this day that can put it on
I think
film,
House of David touches it.
it does a good job. It does a really good job.
It just got more funding. Like
Yeah.
Game of Thrones got more funding. It got HBO money behind it.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
You put Wonder Project produces House of David. Like, I don't even know. Hey, chat, how much did it cost for a per episode for
Game of Thrones
season 5?
I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
There you go, man.
Dude, he told me there was no limit. What does it say?
You don't have pro. That's why, dude. You got a limited chat, bro.
I don't got the $200
You have. Oh man, see, you got a janky.
I got the $20 one. I don't got the $200 one.
You got the janky version of.
Dude, I asked him earlier, is there a limit? He's like, no limit. You're good.
No limit. You're good. You're apparently not. So see, that's why we do it. We tested in this episode. How much did it cost per episode of season 5 for Game of Thrones?
Have you?
We're gonna just read it, but let's just say it. On average, every episode was $6 million, $6 to $8 million. All right. How much did it cost per episode of House of David season 1?
And there will be like inflation too, because Game of Thrones is older. So.
Yeah. I wasn't able to. If you like, I could dig through.
You can't find it?
Yeah, there's nothing.
Wonder Project is that low key, huh?
Huh?
Wonder Project's like, oh, we don't share that.
Well, no, they're just probably not big enough that's even maybe an interest or anything like that. I think you could probably see how much it costs to produce
and divide
season
it by
1,
8 or whatever.
How many episodes there is,
12 to 15 million per episode, but that's in 2023, 2024 for House of David. 12. It says there are some discussions and speculation. For example, Reddit threads mention $12 to $15 million per episode for House of David. So, mind you, it's not really apples to apples because inflation, and Game of Thrones was way back in the day. So it's probably.
What's the recent Game of Thrones show?
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon?
Yeah, I think that's like $1 billion.
Was House
per season. Yeah.
Dragon. $20 million per episode for House of Dragon.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
So almost you said there's reports maybe 8 to 10 million or something for House of David. 12 to 15. Yeah. So you're looking at millions more in that sense. But yeah, I think House of David it's close. It's close, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's close. I've been impressed, and it's obviously in season 2, and I'm working on January to have maybe one of the main actors come on and have a conversation. But I think House of David, if even if they got double the budget, it would just increase that much more in their ability. But it's House of David is impressive, and you got to get over some of the creative licensing that takes place. And I've been on a few phone calls with people, where I've shared feedback about the certain creative licensings, but it's so minimal. And again, like, the scriptures are narrative to prove a point. This is one of the, again, I never know what I'm allowed to say or not say, but, there was a voice note I did for some of the executives at Prime, and it was basically explaining to them that, the difference between the Bible and a script. And it was more so helping them to provide framework on if people get upset on certain. Now, I'm not going to agree with every creative license that takes place, but and they work with Wonder Project, who's phenomenal, and they're all believers there, from what I understand. And but then you have Wonder Project, making it, producing it, writing it, then it goes to Prime and all these things. There's a lot of people in between and stuff, but it's we have to remember that. The Bible is written, or specifically Old Testament, these historical accounts in First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles. It's a story, but it's meant to take you somewhere, right? And ultimately, it's the story of Israel. It's the rise and fall of Israel, which takes us to Malachi. And in between Malachi, you have the 400 years of silence. To them, you have Jesus that arrives, and so these historical accounts aren't being given to us like Narnia, like Lord of the Rings. It's not. And David said this, and then Saul said this, and then his wife, Michelle, said this, and then, Bathsheba came in and she said that, and and then he grabbed his sword, and he, if it says it, it's there just to aid towards the overall story of where the historical count has done. But the scripture's not writing a story; it's writing a narrative historical account of the rise and fall. And all the other storylines that are within there. And so, what I told them to do is there is no way you can create 30-minute, 45-minute, hour episode about the life of David and not have to take some sort of creative license, because the scripture, you don't even take Chosen. There's certain creative licensing I didn't agree with, not morally or even biblically. Just it's I wouldn't have done that, and I don't think Mary Magdalene would have gone back and gone and fell back into her issues or whatever, one of the episodes. But overall, it's but shoot, if Adam had to create a series,
what would he do?
There's 20 things that I would do that would make even my closest friends be like, yeah, man, I don't, I don't see it. But I'm but I have to write this story so that people understand the moment. That's what storytelling is. Storytelling is people don't understand when you're telling a story. One of the things people tell me is when I'm telling a story, they're like, you tell too much information. Why do you do that? Because I'll say the person's ethnicity. I'll say, what they had in their hand or whatever. I'm well, because I feel like if I want you to understand the situation, it's important to know what ethnicity they are. It's important to know whether they were tall or short. It's important to know, what their background was, or whatever, because we all can understand better when we know more of the story, when we know more of the situation. And so for me, when it comes to House of David, the amount of difficulty, because you're not taking a false role. Tolkien, Lewis, Martin, if something doesn't work for their framework, they could just change the character's development story. You know what I mean? They can just alter it.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with something that's biblical, there's enough boundaries. It's you just can't change it, So you have to make it work, when it comes to certain moments. There was a big debate early on in House of David. There was a statement. There's a statement in the book of Samuel concerning David's life, and it's one of the things I had responded to the executives that they were dealing with ahead of time before it reached the audience, so that they would have a response. But the book of Samuel, there's different moments, but essentially what happens, it says, this is a paraphrase, and the actual, I could pull up the actual chapter and verse at one point. It's not hard to find, but there's a point in which it says Saul knew David's family, knew who David was after some time, right? And so it says he knew his family, knew who David was, knew who his family was, knew who his brothers were. And then he kills Goliath, and then one of Saul's statements is, who is his father? I must know who his father is. This kid just did something impressive. And some of the executives were trying to get ahead of it and say, like, in one point of the Bible, it says he knows David and his family. And in another portion, it says, I must be introduced to his dad, essentially, and know who he is, know who his dad is. They're like, hey, how do we deal with this contradiction? Because essentially what was happening is, like, when David kills Goliath, there was going to be a moment where Saul was going to speak, and they were basically like, do we make Saul surprised at David's family, or do we choose the version where Saul is like, oh, your dad's the man, like, he raised a great guy. I already know who he is. They're like, is he a stranger or is he known?
Yeah.
Now, to the average reader, we'd be like, when we're reading the Bible, we're like, we don't we don't care. It's like, David killed Goliath. That's what we celebrate. But when you have to write a show, and now the follow-up scene of the facial expressions and the energy and the excitement, and all, it's dependent upon what they had thought at first was potentially a contradiction. Which contradiction do we choose? And I don't know how high it went up, but I had shared something because I was asked at the time, but I said essentially it is, it's very common for us. I go, you have to think about it in common stance, right? Like, I know who you are, Jermaine. I've known you for many years, but let's just say, by example, I've known you for a year or whatever. I know you. I know you're married. I know you have a son, Valor, and I know certain dynamics about you. I know you have a dad, or and I know you have a mom, and I know and then let's just say you do something incredibly impressive, spectacular. That is clearly, like, exemplifies that you have been raised unique, or you have had some type of unique circumstance because it's above average, right? Then the question would be, dude, who is your dad? I got to meet your dad. I know you have a dad. I know who your dad's name is. Maybe I've even been around him, but now there is an interest of, like, dude, where, like, there are people who know who my dad is, and then there are days they get to know me more, and then they say something like, man, I really want to meet your dad because I want to meet the guy who has raised you.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't ask that for the first year that I knew him. Why did they care? Well, because I became somewhat interesting enough to them that now they want to know, man, now I want to go to your family get together. Now I want to get to know your kids. Now I want to, I'd love to meet your wife because, and so I said, it's very natural. It both can be true. Saul could have been familiar with David's brothers and his family.
Yep.
And the response to doing something so magnificent
you just
saved Israel. You just slayed a giant. Yeah, I want to meet the dad.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, right? You have warriors that come back from combat and overseas, and the parents get invited to the award ceremony, or the wife gets invited to, and then what does the president or someone say to the parents of the soldier? Sir, ma'am, you have raised a good man. They would have never said that prior to what happened in the war. And so it more than likely, in an interpretive sense, you have to take our natural
and even on
what life is, and say, hey, this is probably what it means. It's not a contradiction, because they thought, was Saul like, he had spirits and stuff, so did he have amnesia in that moment? Did when the demons were messing with him, did he, a mental illness, like, did he have a mental illness? And that could have controlled the whole storyline from that point had they, chose that. And to me, I'm like, no, this is a very simple explanation. Now someone could not agree with it, but to me, in an interpretive sense, it's like, this seems to be a very, simple interpretation where he could be excited to meet David's dad and family because of the significant thing that he did. Pretty
and
simple.
And the same happens in the opposite effect. Somebody does something debaucherous, right? The modern day age of serial killers getting on full display with the docu-series.
You want to know,
who raised them?
Who raised them?
Your mother comes into question now. Who raised you? Who's your mom? Who's your dad?
Were you ever disciplined?
So that makes total sense. That's,
But you see how hard it is. You're writing a
It's insane.
story,
Yeah.
and you're creating X amount of episodes, and people are going to say, I don't agree with the angle that was taken.
it is an insane.
But you have to fill in certain points.
And like I happen to be, I don't know if you know this, but like a radical Tolkien nerd. I don't know if you know that. Like,
No, I don't know.
Hours of content. And
Okay.
I watched this guy, Nerd of the Rings. It's the funniest thing. But if you know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Just I've watched every single video he's ever posted. Gabriel and I, we had our little rabbit hole. But I say that to say that Tolkien at the end of his life was writing these letters because he started to identify minor contradictions. Hey, I notice
Yes, I know
Aragorn
this.
met
Yeah.
so-and-so, and
Yeah.
even people would say, so this random detail contradicts here, but these guys were just so gifted to just have a branch of information. And what you're saying like is really true. But when it comes to the Bible and expressing that on a narrative, it's hard because who gets to make those decisions when it's not the Bible? The storyteller, the creator.
Right.
Who makes the decisions when it's the Bible? We're just interpreting the story. And like you said, that is a interpretation issue, right? What did he mean
Yeah.
when he said, who is your dad? Who is this guy's dad? That's a crazy...
And think about how many hours, days, weeks you would have to ponder on that. And different theologians are going to have different approaches and all that stuff like that. You talk to a Jewish person, they're going to have a different approach than a Protestant. You talk to a Catholic, they might have a slightly different approach. And so,
But one decision makes a web of other decisions that
you
that
make
can
Saul
detriment.
mentally ill at that point where he has amnesia. That impacts a lot of the story. You make it appear there's a contradiction in Scripture. That that now becomes a whole thing, right? Yeah, absolutely. And so the problem is a lot of times as Christians, we go, oh, we want, more Christian content. We want more Christian movies and television shows. And then, cause I've talked to people and, oh, do you watch House of David? Oh, I watched the first episode. I didn't like that, David got hit with the spear or whatever. Now I agree. I don't think David should have been hit and cut with the spear and bleeding. But I was early on a creative license they took that at the time they, as far as I understand, didn't understand the theological significance of it, even for Jews, because Jews, put David at the highest pedestal even to this day. And they were really upset. Like, David has never, been cut like that and this and that and everything like that. But at the same regard, so people have said, oh, I saw one inconsistency, so therefore I wrote the whole thing off. And then when you understand how hard of if they only did a show of what was recorded like in Scripture with only the dialogue recorded in Scripture, number one, it would be 5-minute episodes. And there would only be like 20 episodes of 5 minutes because you don't understand just by the way that Saul responds to how he killed Goliath. It deframes into it leads into a whole different aspect. And so we don't recognize how hard of a journey. And even like there was a time, I don't think I've ever been hard on Chosen, but just was like, oh, I don't agree with this aspect, but I love Chosen. I watch all the episodes, and when Easter comes out, I'm going to, try to book a theater and invite people and celebrate it. And then if there's one or two things that I'm like, as long as it doesn't mess with the message. And that's what I was telling, some of the people at Amazon was like, you have to make sure that the end message is consistent with what the Scriptures is trying to do, to make sure that it doesn't mess with how the message ends. Like the Scriptures in Isaiah make it clear that Jesus has never broken a bone in his body, right? So it would mess with the message if in the next Chosen series somehow let's just say a guard hits Jesus with a bat and they do like a crush and his bone breaks. It's like, hey, that messes with the message because the point of the gospel, this is what happened. But let's just say whatever else, right? However his clothing is, and well, that's not period correct clothing or whatever, guys, that doesn't mess with the message. It doesn't mess with the input. So get over it. Like, let it move past it. Even Scripture's never been blatant that David's never been cut or whatever, or by the spear or whatever. It just wasn't in that story. And so though I wouldn't have made that decision, it's like, hey guys, it still doesn't mess with the message. Like it's still, you need to be encouraged that you're dealing with faith, you're dealing with the Bible. there's a lot of Christians, also cults, and Jews are involved all in the Bible, right? You have Mormons, Jehovah's Witness, you have, then you have Protestants, and you have Catholic. So it's like you have Jewish people, that Old Testament. It's like you're not going to be able to produce something where everyone's unanimously going to be like, this is it, this is it. So you just got to be comfortable to know, don't mess with the end messaging. Make sure that stays theologically true, and then do your best to have integrity with, the times of what could have been possible and how a certain dialogue happened. All that kind of stuff like that,
Their job is insanely hard. Like, I think, as a creative, it's fun to ask questions, but it's dangerous to ask the wrong question. Like, Inside the Manger was like, what did their prayer look like? Well, we see what they prayed. What conditions around them caused them to pray like that? And then you could there are creative liberties that are not dangerous, but then there are some that are totally detrimental. Like, it'd be interesting because, like, for a Game of Thrones or whatever, like, for example, even Tolkien Rings of Power, they did have somebody from the Tolkien estate kind of as a consultant or whatever. And I just hope that they really do dial in that kind of fair counsel of, when they're producing these shows, who's going to be the one to help guide.
They do. They have a counsel. I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, I know. Let's just change the subject. It's too much walking on. No. I understand.
I'm not on the council, but but there is.
And I assume there is, but there's
Let me do a broad stroke, for all all faith-based content with my experience with all types of faith. What I would say is the people most knowledgeable about what happened in the Bible are also not the most creative. And so what happens is you take what they know, and then they're on set or they're looking at the script, and then they'll get really mad at a creative license. And though it didn't happen in the Bible, they'll still say, I don't agree. It shouldn't be like that. They're not nuanced enough because they're Bible scholars, so they operate in black and white. So they would say, no, you can't throw a spear. It didn't say he threw a spear. And it's like, well, just because it said he didn't, it's not writing the story to give us a story. Like, they may say, let's just not say Goliath's fight, but let's just say another fight. Maybe it never explicitly says that someone threw, or try to hit them with a sword, but it also didn't not say that.
It also said they fought or they engaged in a fight.
Right, and so, and so they would say, yeah, but it says fought, but it never says they fought with a sword. You can't do it. And so then the scholar kind of becomes a headache because they're providing value, but they're also providing a headache, because they're not nuanced enough, and they're not, pastors tend to be the most nuanced because pastors operate in the real world.
They tell stories, they preach
people,
messages.
We deal with people on a day-to-day, and so we understand that not everything is so black and white. We understand that as we're dealing with individuals, like, we journey with the individual, and we're tough on sin, but we also explain, hey, this is what God means. Whereas, like, a scholar, they don't really deal with people too much. They are behind the scenes. They tend to be a little bit more antisocial. So you put them in a studio, they actually kind of cause havoc. And so in a lot of these things, there are councils and there are scholars and there's diverse scholars because they want to make sure that you want to do your best if it's going to be interfaith. You want to make sure that as many, interfaith individuals are in there and you come to a consensus as best as possible, right? Of like what could happen. But at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of people, like, they just will be like, they'll walk away.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not taking my take. You took the Catholic's take or whatever, right? On that,
I could see that.
On that particular moment. So then it becomes chaotic. So what a lot of these writers are doing, they're trying their best they're doing their own research. They are interviewing, Bible scholars and theologians. It's just they're in not every account, but in some, I think Chosen has done the best in terms of staying balanced with with good theology that doesn't get haywire or funny. And I know they have a counsel because they have a podcast where their counsel is interviewed. I've only listened to it once, so I can't co-sign on the legitimacy of their counsel, but I'm sure they're brilliant and educated and scholars and all that kind of stuff like that. I know House of David has it as well, and the other series is that these companies are working on, which are other biblical characters, so that stuff is in the works. They're trying. They do try to weigh it. It's just, it gets hard.
Yeah, and then I can't even imagine how frustrating it is to create like Christian, to tell the story of the Bible or whatever, and then Christians are the most mad about it. Catholics are the most mad. Like that is such a frustrating. That's kind of where my statement was more driven towards. Is like, Passion of the Christ is the most successful R-rated film.
Mm-hmm. It's a phenomenal movie. Yeah.
The most successful, most highest performing in the box office R-rated film. And so I don't know who is babying Christians today. I mean, I think they're babying themselves by their backlash, by their immaturity, whatever, or claimed Christian, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just kind of tired of it because I'm not super calloused. I'm chill, and I'm also careful. I don't go and watch Game of Thrones every night or whatever, but I'm just kind of tired of the fact that like artists can't even tell stories successfully because the success is based on the monetary performance and its engagement.
Yeah.
So like there is going to be another Mel Gibson moment where he's just like, I'm gonna do something because he's gonna do the resurrection of the Christ, and that's super exciting. But
I'm interested
we just I think culture needs that. It shows with Passion of the Christ. We just need somebody fearless, indie, fund it. Like God needs to put it on a billionaire's heart to just be like, I'll give $100 million to a movie or to whatever. Because I just think the culture sometimes just needs it. Like I think Passion of the Christ was super edifying, even though a lot of people were uncomfortable with it. The resurrection and the crucifixion was uncomfortable. I think some
but the reason why it was rated R was the crucifixion scene. It wasn't anything else, and so it's just it's a masterpiece. But the problem was the reason why another Passion of the Christ, which I think Chosen will do its own version of that, and to its same prestige, if not more. Maybe not in terms of a masterpiece, but in terms of the magnificence of it, because Jonathan Rumi's an incredible Jesus. But the reason why is because Passion of the Christ took, basically Mel Gibson took the last week of Jesus's life, or really last weekend of Jesus's life, and produced a 2-hour version of that, which is possible. But like I just explained, it's like you try to expand David's life and you have to fill in and have more discourse than what's there, because Passion of the Christ, relatively speaking, we'd have to pull it up, but from what I regard is there's not a whole lot of dialogue. There's a lot of monologue, and there's a lot of setting up the story through circumstances, situation, in terms of building moments, and so that's a bit easier to do in one time, a one-time go, But you want to produce more movies or more television based off of that expand it in terms of you're going to have dialogue, and that's where people start getting frustrated.
For sure.
When the dialogue happens, which is what Chosen has had to go over that hurdle. It's done a great job with it. But like when that hurdle comes, that's when it becomes hard.
And they practice a lot of courage, and they traveled from this city to that city, and Chosen's going to sit there and make that a 5-minute scene.
They're going to make it a walk and a dialogue.
Yeah, so it takes courage, and it sucks that they have to be in those positions, and it's a high risk, high reward game,
for sure,
trying to be accurate. But
I think there will over the next 5 years we will see far more Bible stuff than ever before, because 10, 15 years ago they tried, but with mainstream actors and mainstream studios, and they try to make Noah and all that. It's just silly stuff. It's just way too much creative license.
Yeah, for sure.
But from what I know of, all these projects that are currently happening are Christian-backed products, Christian-owned products. And so there is a sense of integrity that's there, which for me makes me more confident to want to encourage more people to like, hey, go watch it, go check it out. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be creative licensings that you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I do know that a lot of it has believers behind it that are trying their best to give you something, that will benefit you. So why not? Why not engage with it? Why not, spend your money on that and not Game of Thrones or whatever,
Dude, you're dogging on Game of Thrones.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone,
this
thanks
is a
for
film
joining
corner
us
today.
I know, yeah, it became a TV and culture film site. What I do know is not just a simple shout out and plug, but if you are looking for more faith-based content, I know this to be true, but Wonder Project does have an app and a subscription service just like Netflix, and they got a lot of great stuff that's coming out. I actually have a pre-screening that I'm going to watch this weekend of a new movie from Wonder Project, and let me pull up what I think it's called Sarah's Tears. It's done by Wonder Project, and it's kind of got God in the background. I guess kind of similar way to put it is like, and I'm gonna watch it this weekend, so I'll let you guys know what I think
movie?
when it comes out. Yeah, it's coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's gonna come out in theaters. It's a movie called Sarah's Tears. I want to make sure that's right before
I'm writing it down because I'm trying to keep your interest and things you plug for like your engagement series too. So
yeah. Oh, not Sarah's Tears, but sorry, Sarah's Oil. Sarah's Oil. Okay. I was close. It was Sarah something. It's made by MGM Studios. It's made by Wonder Project, but it's the story of the first black female millionaire, and she had a native connection in her bloodline that got her a land allocation when her dad died, and God told her, I think in a dream, I haven't seen it yet, but I think the premise is God told her in a dream that her land had oil. And she drilled and she found oil. And then now all the wealthy, this was like 100 some odd years ago, and all the wealthy white oil guys try to come and steal her land, and just a young girl that was like 9 or 10 years old, and she became a millionaire. The Rockefellers came and purchased her land. She became a millionaire overnight. It's a whole thing. But speaking of what you're saying, family friendly, high quality stuff that you don't look at and go, oh, see, that's Christian. I know it. I could tell by the bad acting and all that. It's like this is just an entertaining version of good family friend storyline between the first black female millionaire in America.
Sick.
Most people don't know, 9 or 10 years old or something like that. It's kind of the story of her life, called Sarah's Oil. But it's kind of like an Esther story where like God's there, but he's like behind the scenes, and he talks to her. But it's like it's that type of thing. And so I'm going to pre-screen it this weekend. I got sent a link, but I'm excited that for stuff like this, that there seems to be cultural interest in stuff that you can watch with your family, and that's safe and that isn't going to corrupt the next generation and stuff like that. And so really, really exciting stuff, and I think it's a Wonder Project thing. So it's going to go in theaters, but for anyone that's like, man, I really like Netflix, Hulu, that's cool, but like, is there anything for faith that's producing, like, I know if I put it in my TV, it's going to be all family friendly. Wonder Project has an app like that, and they have like movies like Rudy and all that, like stuff that's like inspirate, like I think Remember the Titans, kind of stuff like that. Maybe that's not dope. Exactly that movie, but it's like, it's stuff that's not all faith, but it's like, it's family friendly, and then they're producing faith-based content, which is cool. So you can I think you could add it to your app store, and I don't even know how much it is a month, but maybe $10 or something like that. But cool options that we can't keep saying we want and need more stuff and then not put our dollar behind it. It's just not gonna, just like at churches, people are always like, churches need to do more, and it's like, well, are you a Christian? Yeah. So do you give to your church? No. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to test if your church can do more unless everyone gets on board and starts giving the way that you're supposed to be. So in the same way, we can't say we need more of this, TV, movies, this and that, and then things are existing. And then we go,
And that's why I will be posting. You will see me when Resurrection of the Christ comes out. I'll be posting about it. I will be behind a good. I will get behind it. No, not financially.
Good for you.
I'm I don't got nothing, but with
you
my words.
You got enough to go get a movie ticket or whatever.
Yep, and that's what I do.
All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us for this conversation today. Be blessed. Have a great week. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. The more you like, the more you subscribe, the more you comment, the more the algorithm kind of gets out to individuals and becomes suggested to people. So don't forget to do that and engage with everything beyond the letter. God bless y'all. Talk to you soon.